Hello everyone, and welcome to the 5th episode of the It's Just Not Your Day podcast with myself, Drayton, and Templeshot, who are hosting this episode discussing tournaments. There's been a lot of discussion around Conqueror's Blade League and Conqueror's Blade Rivals, so we thought of no better person than SeaBee, the creator of SeaBee Rivals, to come and talk about that. So, SeaBee, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm just a player, really. Started out during COVID, as so many, I guess. Played the game like non-stop for 8 or 10 weeks, I think, and then I kind of catched up to some of the veterans in season 4. And now I think most people know me simply because I'm organizing SeaBee Rivals, the biggest league and competition for Conqueror's Blade right now. I also did some casting before that, and for our tournament with General Combo. That was really fun. And then I did quite a few highlights, and I think that's also one of the step-ups that allowed everybody to accept me being a tournament organizer for one of the biggest events now in Conqueror's Blade.
Just jumping on one of the things you said there. So you were saying that after sort of 4 to 8 weeks, you caught up to some of the veterans at the time. So what is it that you class as a veteran then? Because we've had this conversation with a lot of guests.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, it's kind of back then. To me, it kind of felt like if you had cash chicks, you were the veteran player, because that was from the first season the hardest missions to get and to complete, especially before the discount they did on the pages. So just getting the cash chicks was absolutely like the highest level of veterancy I could see back then, at least for me. But I guess it's just like having a level of understanding of the game that allows you to win most of your games. To me, I mean, of course, it's also kind of being on the competitive side then maybe, but I feel like most veterans will know how to get easily more than 100 unit kills, more than 5 hero kills, like if they try hard for it in a game, where the new players will never be able to do that in the PvP scenario.
So what was your new player experience like? You said you grinded it for 4 to 8 weeks. Yes, COVID allowed that, but...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, to me, so it was my little brother who caught my attention. He said, "This is a game that's probably going to be really cool for you," because I kind of like the RPG, but I don't like to do solo games. I like to play the big war stuff with armies, but I don't like total war. And this was the perfect in between, I think, like for so many. And that was this was just my dream game basically from the start. So it was this non-stop grinding. I just had so much fun with every single thing. Tried going outside, and it was so scary at first at Anliang. I was so happy apparently eventually that I was able to talk to some people and they would help me out with aggressive bandits and stuff like this and rebels. But yeah, that was basically the first experience, and it's been really fun to explore the game with someone else. I think if I had to do it on my own, it would have been pretty scary. At times. Yeah.
I think just going on one thing you said there as well, it was like you enjoyed that early grind. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts there on how they're making it easier and easier now for new players, and how that sort of grind has changed now for a new player. What's your opinions on that?
Yeah, sure. It's so tricky as well, I think. Like, I really enjoyed it, but that's also because I had free time, right? So I had to, I was able to catch up and put in 8 to 12 hours in a day for almost a couple of weeks straight. So the grind to get those cash chicks wasn't that hard anymore if you play so much. But right now with my schedule, like I have maybe 3 or 4 nights in a week to play 1 or 2 hours at most. Like even now I can hardly keep up with the new units. So I guess I kind of do like it that you get new units, because for me, what I like in this game now is that I have everything and I can play with it. So I would rather just be able to have everything, play with it, and then go to TWs, go to the sieges, go to ranked, and just play. For me, it's not about grinding out the new units. That's not fun, but it was fun to slowly get into the game and get the units. But yeah,
I guess you're just in a sort of different point in your life now. Like you said, you can't spend those 8 to 12 hours a day playing the game, so it's just a different sort of point now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I guess that is a good theme to run on, right? You know, we're seeing the game. I'm seeing more new people coming into the game the last couple of weeks. Honestly, I've seen a lot of new people coming with this new season. I think the Steam charts have shown quite a big increase on a daily player base as well. But it's like these players are probably not the die-hard spending 12 hours a day playing and grinding the game. They're probably, a lot of them are going to be casual gamers doing an hour or two each day. So the fact that it is easier now for those players to sort of get up to that level is probably a good thing overall.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
True. Apart from the skill or the unlock ceiling has just gone up and up and up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So where we started would be unlocking things with honor on the unit tree as well as doing seasonal challenges. Now the honor is a valuable resource that levels your units further. And we've seen with the Mace Sergeants how strong they are when you start unlocking them on the Mastery tree.
Which I think that was really interesting they brought in with the Mace Sergeants as well, because they've done it now so that every new player can get that really easily through there. There's a tutorial system you can do. Well, I say easily, you start to play quite a bit, but that is a unit that can compete against any of the current really tier 3, 4, and 5 units, because once you mastered it with the Mastery. So I think that's definitely an interesting thing they brought in, that it's a unit that can fight to a certain degree against higher tier units that's very easily accessible for any player. So I like what they've done with that, but it's going to be interesting to see how it fares once we get into this tier 4 lock and tier, and then the no unit lock coming up in a couple of weeks' time.
But I'm also really curious. I don't know if you've played with new players as well, or like talk to them about their experience being a new player in the game right now, because I also feel like the bloat of like getting the masteries, getting the runes, getting the special doctrines, stuff like this also makes it more complicated. And I feel like right now, if I were to start new, I would be feeling more of an uphill battle just to get all the different things unlocked.
It's not just new players.
It was just it was just units. You had to get the units, and that was it almost.
It's returning players as well.
It's returning players. It's not just the new ones. A lot of players have come back because the Japanese season has been something people have been begging for years now.
Right.
We just had the 4th year anniversary of Conqueror's Blade. And a couple of my friends returned to the game and they just went, I need a couple of days just to get my head round what's going on. Because they're no longer in guilds. They've fallen out the house system. Like they might join cohorts, but there's no information from them there. Or when they ask a question such as why are there only hard rebels outside right now, they get answers like you just need to play better, which is obviously not a helpful comment.
No, not at all.
And when people are just trying to learn, that really doesn't help.
Well,
an interesting one I've seen as well is obviously we've got that new CM that's just started, Jolt Switch. So seeing him starting to play this game, they had the stream earlier today where they were playing with him, and it was just like seeing how he's assessing certain things in the game shows a lot as well, and seeing it from that sort of more new player experience, because he's playing alongside Katie, who, you know, she's no top player by any means, but has been playing this game for a while, has a lot of experience in the game, and just seeing that even just the difference between those two is quite a big difference there.
I imagine, and also it emphasizes the point about, for example, what I said, like how much it helped me to play with someone else, and even someone else that didn't have any experience in the game, just having fun together and figuring it out together already helped. But I think it's just like right now it's even more important to be in a house or in a team that helps you and guides you. And but it can be hard in any game, right? That is multiplayer and where there's a clan or house system to join a house, because it's kind of scary to join a big group if you don't know anyone else, and especially like what you said, like the comments often are just get better or get good or whatever.
Definitely.
So I watch a couple of streamers. One in particular, I think Eternal Prince. He's an English-speaking content creator, and he's going through the low-level grind. I think he's verging on level 200 now, and a number of times he said, "Oh, I wish I was just playing against players." When he was in that kind of transitional period where he'd get some games against players and some games against bots. And he was going, I just want to play against players. I just want to play. And it's that kind of like addiction that, oh, one more game. I love this. I want to play another one. Where it's almost like you're accelerated too fast. You haven't learned enough. Yes, you need to learn through a baptism of fire by playing against people who've got max doctrine and everything. However, when you get there, you are so under-equipped. So it's kind of like, can you close the gap and give them decent gear, such as the stuff you immediately get from the Fame store, which is decent level gear. Anyone could unlock that after probably about 5 sieges. And then you start to question, like, does the weapon really make a difference? I've seen people do fine with blue weapons versus gold. Like, when you know what you're doing, you can really balance things out. So there's huge change, huge differences, and new players are going through different experiences and they want to play against players. I think that's
I mean, I was watching Plumsion stream the other day, and there was a new player in there. There was about level 60, I think he was, or 80, who was saying, how much longer do I have to play with bots because this is really boring.
It gets boring.
But then at the same time, when they go into those first player games, they're probably not going to have a fun time.
You just want to wrap them in bubble wrap for a little bit longer. but they just want to fly.
Just enjoy those bot games. Get some seasonal challenges done while you can farm 200-300 unit kills in a game. Just do as much as you can now.
Yeah, but that's the thing as well. So for me, I'm a competitive player. I also started organizing tournaments, so I guess that makes sense. So for me, it was really fun to play against players, get stomped, and realize, oh, I'm so bad at this game. I need to find some guides, watch some evolos, watch some Super Keto Reach and some other players that are really good, and learn how those units work. Go to the expeditions because I know that is AI, so I can practice there. Does it matter if I die or whatever? No one will flame me. So for me, that is already a clear way to decide I want to play players or want to play AI, and but that's how I like it in terms of getting started. I just like to have it really hard and then also be able to notice that you get better because you have done some training on the AI, realized how a unit works, and then you try to put it to practice and see if it works together with other players.
Yeah, getting thrown in the deep end. I find I learn a lot better that way as well. And that's how I sort of picked up early on in this game. I've said before how I was in a small house, got paired up again, and was working alongside some of the biggest houses in the game at the time. And I learned so much from those guys, just playing sieges with them and just learning from them in territories, all that kind of stuff. So definitely learn a lot more for me personally by just jumping straight into the action.
Yeah.
But not everyone's like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, SeaBee, you mentioned it there, and the reason we want you on today was because of the community tournament that you helped organize. Could you give us a little rundown of its history and where you step in?
All right, so the history started, I guess, with custom lobbies, really. The moment custom lobbies was introduced or announced, I already was like, all right, the first day is going to come out. I'm going to start a Discord. I'm going to invite everyone I know and then get it going. So on my way home on my bike, I checked on my phone and I saw someone else, Bird of Chin, had actually done the exact same thing in terms of how it looked from the outside of what I wanted to do. So I was like, all right, great stuff. I'm going to sign up with my team and play and have fun, and that's going to be really cool. Because I enjoyed playing in tournaments so much back when I played with PondGuard, I played a little bit with Endgegner, casted some games with our tournaments. So I was really happy that just someone else was going to organize it. I didn't have to do it, so I could just enjoy the team play. But then after a few weeks, apparently the tournament wasn't going to happen. So Bird of Chin dropped it. He said that he wasn't able to get someone in. So I DM'd him. I was like, well, if no one else is going to do it, get me the permission on Discord and I'll see what I can do, because I already had experience organizing tournaments like in real life with board games. And well, again, because of COVID, real life board games and stuff weren't a possibility. So this was, for me, it was the next best thing, basically. So then I had permission on Discord and changed a few things that I thought were not going to be good to have like a long-term league, because that's what my goal was, to have it like long-term for everyone, accessible for everyone, and just be able to get as many games in as you could, compared to a tournament where only the best keep getting better. And that's how I picked it up.
Yeah, I guess up until that point, obviously we're talking like prior to custom games, there had been previous tournaments, right? But they were deathmatch tournaments. I don't think, was there any that had any units? I don't think so, right? Because you have to do everything in the open world, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So there was, you mentioned RE tournament. There was another one as well, wasn't there an NA guy that had done a lot of deathmatch tournaments as well?
Yeah, there
had you done some APHs as well?
Yeah. So you had some official tournaments, of course, on the official tournament server from my games. That's
that, of course. Yeah.
Our tournament, core tournament. There's also one from Hand Banana PvP or something. That's like really, really old stuff with Kitten, and I think Endgegner is the only current team that was in that one.
Yeah, you had some other ones that were done, sort of deathmatch style ones, where it was like one that didn't Itachi make one a while ago, where it was a massive deathmatch one, because I ended up casting that, and it was like 5 or 6 hours long, where I was sat in this call with there was that streamer at the time that used to stream that was the Liege of Moon Manor, Crescentine. So I was just sat in a call with her basically for 5 hours, just watching all these deathmatch fights, trying to talk about what was going on. And it's just towards the end, we were just like, Jesus Christ, this needs to end. This needs to end. It's just so many fights happening, but because there were so many people that wanted these competitive tournaments, that wanted to have these competitive fights that we didn't have access to at the time. So it was just, I think we went into a border crossing in the Borderlands, I think, because there's the one that has the wall fort style big circle for base point. That's like the map. And so you could have a really good tournament based on that. And so there was like 5 or 6 different fights happening all at the same time. But that's one of the earliest tournaments that I was personally a part of, was casting that.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, it could be. Yeah. So you definitely had that, and then I think you also at some point had over at NA, I think Celsius and some of his friends organized open world tournaments or competitions where you had like 3v3s, and then there's someone else like judge and someone else casting, I guess. Well, that was pretty fun as well. So that was also a way to do it, but it was all just so like just beefy, not good for long term.
But it just showed that the community really, really wants these competitive style fights. And so when CB Rivals came in, that was a godsend to a lot of people, because obviously we hadn't had CBL for like a year at that point when you first started CB Rivals, I think. And it was almost 2 years before we had the next CBL, which we just had recently this year. So CB Rivals coming in was a big thing. There were a few other small ones, like there was the NA 8v8 that I used to take part in as well, which was a nice little way to farm some sovereigns. And there's a few other little tournaments here and there, but Rivals was such a big thing that came in.
Yeah, definitely the biggest thing that happened until then. And yes, it's also been like so fun, like because when CB Rivals came in, you already had core tournaments. So core tournament was on the official server. So it basically meant that we had this idea of where CB Rivals is going to be the open for everyone competition with fewer rules, because on the custom lobby there's no way to control everything. You cannot control for 400 players if they have runes, if they have the right armor, if they have the right leadership, if they have blah 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 blah, everything set up correctly. I mean, that would be just so annoying to judge or referee.
I mean, it would be impossible, right? Because the only way I could think of doing it is like you'd have to screen share and then go through it. But then as soon as you stop that and go check someone else, they could just change their gear anyway. So it'd be almost impossible to check.
So it would just be impossible, basically. So there's definitely ways to get it done, but it would be so much work. You would have to pay me $1 million, and even then I wouldn't do it probably. So no way then how that's gonna happen. But so CBR is gonna be like the quick and easy tournament that everyone could just have fun in. And then the idea originally was to make it like a league, and then kind of like a Champions League or a tournament that would be core tournament where the best teams would go to, and then hopefully we would be able to talk to My Games and say, well, this stuff is so good that we've organized as a community. Have the best teams play in CBL, make that the European Championship or the Western Championship, and then maybe set up something else with like CBL Asia and get a World Championship going. Like, and this is all just community driven. Like the long-term vision that we as a community have, and I think this is what we should be talking about, is so much more than what My Games is currently offering in the West, and I think that's really sad at the same time. But it also shows again the passion of the players. But yeah. That's really
I mean, just to jump in there with what you said. So obviously in the West, so just for those that don't know, there is obviously the 2 versions of the game. So there's the My Games version in the West, there is the Booming version in the East. They are the original developers of the game. They have a CBL every 3-4 months that they come out with, and it is a huge thing over there. It's like 160 teams or something can enter at some point, or I can't remember how many, because when I entered it with PLEBs, I can't remember how many people were in there, but there was probably close to 100 teams, maybe 120 teams. I don't know the number exactly, but such a huge pool over there of people that want to compete at this level, and it's real money prizes as well, which is a massive difference if you look at it comparatively. I think when we played, I think there was a 10 grand cash prize for the winners, and you compare that to over here, and nothing against it. My Games can do what they can do, but compare it to here, and it was 10,000 sovereigns. For each player, so of the winning side, and there is a big difference, but it's such a different game. Because like I said, I went and competed over there. It's so much fun, but there's not really any crossover unless you physically go and sign up like we did. I mean, there was with the previous CBL we had over here that Surf Slayers won. There was something they were trying to do where they were taking the top 4 teams that finished there to go and compete in like a friendly tournament on the Asian side or with the Asian sides. But it just never went anywhere. It just kept going, oh, we'll do it next month. Oh, we'll do it next month. Oh, we'll do it next month, and nothing ever happened.
Didn't Gegner get to do that?
Yeah, they got.
I think they did it with the previous one,
but it was just blue units apparently.
Yeah, it was just I remember what it was just a blue unit on Hiding Field, I think it was. And it was like a friendly tournament. It wasn't like a proper actual fight or anything like that.
Like an invitational.
They won it though, so they are the only team from the West that has won in the East.
EU2 better than EU1, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's not true. It's not true. EU2 trash.
Light up the
So
conversation.
yeah, you've gone through a number of seasons of CB Rivals, and a lot of it was taken up because season 0, you had a lot of signups, more than I anticipated, and I was part. I think I joined as part of Odin's Legion. I've been part of that since. We had 2 leagues at the start.
Yeah,
you've had to make a lot of decisions around structuring and how to actually manage these teams. Some of them have been received well, some of them have not been received well.
Especially but like 2 seasons ago was the worst in terms of not well received for sure. But that was also the trickiest one actually. We should talk about it later, but yeah,
we will. When you look back at season 0, what were your highlights?
Oh, so many. Just so many. Like the whole season was just one big party for me. First of all, what you said, like I expected maybe 8 teams, and then we had 16. So I was like, all right, am I going to do a league of 16 teams? No, because that's going to be 15 weeks. Not going to happen. So we did 2 groups because I already had the idea of I want to go to the feudal division system where we have like same with the unitary, different levels of tiers, right? So same with any ranked system that you have. So I wanted to have like top 4 goes there from each group and blah, blah, blah. So just having 16 teams was already amazing because that allowed me to say, all right, with so much interest, I can already look to the future of CB Rivals and say, we're going to get this to look even better and more consistent. So that was just the best start I could ever have hoped for. And then it was already really, really like amazing to see all the teams continuing the whole league, basically. I think not a single team dropped out, which was just, I think it's really unique because all the seasons after the first one, we've had teams dropping out because it is really hard to continue and finish a season with 20 different players and different team captains if you have different ones. So,
and we can see you brought in some ways to try and help that, right? You know, with increasing the number of players you can have, you can swap players in and out during the season with limitations. So you have tried to bring things to help that. But yeah, it is difficult for a lot of teams, especially if you look at when we did have the 2 divisions and having sort of I would say a lot of the rustic teams are the ones that struggle with it because they're not as, I want to say it nicely, they're not as try hard as some of the feudal teams.
Well, it's definitely fair. And that's also, that's something that I think like people, at least how should I say? So my expectation of teams being in a rustic division is that they shouldn't try hard. Maybe some teams, because they're new into the lower division and they want to go to the highest division, they should try hard for sure. Get out of the lower division, go to the highest and compete with the top teams. But all the other ones, just show up on Sunday, play your matches, have fun, enjoy the tournament scene and the league scene, and go to your next TW, and that's it. Don't scrim, just play and have fun with your friends because it's such a different game if you play with 15 guys that you know for a couple games against other teams. So
definitely, and I think the 3 of us here can attest that and say that having these competitive fights and these top fights with a group of people that you know and trust well are some of the best parts of this game for most people, most veterans, I would say. And it's what I tried to do this season. So obviously, I took part with no scrims, 3 wins this season. Originally, just joining it, just had a bit of fun for a season, have breaks. Obviously, coming from plebs and the sort of longevity of that, just wanted to relax, but still wanted to play in tournaments. Obviously, things then changed when Ubershell dropped out, and so I had to take it over. But the whole point of that was just to have a tournament team with some newer players in there that hadn't fought in tournaments before, but there were a lot of vets in there as well, and just to chill out and have fun, just turn up on a Sunday, play the game, whatever happens, happens. And we ended up getting to the finals and coming second in overall, so really happy with that, obviously. But it was just a nice, chill time. I didn't have to spend hours every day doing strats like I was in plebs. Didn't have to turn up like 3 hours early and plan out everything, all the units. It was literally, we'd meet up an hour before the match would start. We'd go, these are the bands, okay, we'll start with these units, sure, whatever. That's kind of it. Cool. We'll see you guys in half an hour when it's time to play. Come back then, or we can just chill here, you know, and just play the game and just enjoyed it. And honestly, they were some of the most fun like fights I'd had in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just completely different. Obviously, love playing in plebs. Some of those fights were just such intense fights and some of the best moments I'll ever have in this game.
Mm-hmm.
But from an NSFW side, they were just fun because they're just so relaxed. You're just kind of dicking around, but you're doing it in a competitive format with people that you enjoy playing with. So
and
really, really do attest to that.
Yeah, exactly. And you also know it's going to continue, and I think that's the best part. You know you're going to see each other again next week, and then you're going to have more fun. So that's good. But so back to your question, Drayton, because I kind of like went around it. So because there's just so many great things about season 0, but I think the single one highlight that I really enjoyed the most when I look back at season 0 is actually the final between PLEBs and PondGuard, and especially all those fights. Again, not a highlight, but just a memory of all the fights around the B point where PLEBs and PondGuard would be going to each other. No, don't engage. Okay, go again. No. Go. No. So they would keep going in and out, not engaging, not engaging. It was some of the like closest and most tense fights I've ever seen in Conquest Blade, I think. And also the map La Grande Gloire. I think it's been the only season ever where we've played on it for the final. I think it's just such a great map because there's so many little things. And on Temple, I think you can explain which ones, but there's so many things that you can do on the map, which gives you a small advantage, like the bridge, the traps that you destroyed. It's just
it was honestly that is my highlight of season 0 as well. Like that was such a fun series to be a part of. There's so many different things that happened in it. I mean, there were some big things. So going into it, the week before that match was going to happen, we actually had a strat to send our dual blades out to go and kill the trebs because there was some sort of bug or something where the dual blades could melee the trebs and kill them in about 20-30 seconds with 2 of them, and we were going to wipe like the first 3 trebs. The day before the game, a patch came out and they just silently fixed that and we couldn't do it anymore. We were like, that was our whole strat gone. What do we do? And just seeing how every single game on that map just played out differently each time, that was the most unique thing, because you see like a lot of maps in the pool, it's fought the same way every time. Either a team will go here or they'll go there. It's the same. You know what's going to happen. If they've got these units, you know where they're going to fight. And it was just so unique on that because no one had played it before. Having the matchup on the bridge where we kept, when we were attacking, we'd come from behind them and then try and push into them on B, and just the smoke screens that they were using that no one was really using at that point, and they used those really well just to kind of block all our vision and get some good trebs in and some good range support coming through. That was so much fun. When we were then defending and they were trying to rebuild that bridge on the side, and they were just stacking their horses there with the heroes on their horses trying to block the Namkun shots, and we just killed like 20 horses just over and over, killing their horses, and they couldn't rebuild that bridge for a good like 4 or 5 minutes. It was so much fun just to be standing there watching that, just pissing myself laughing in the call because it was so much fun.
If you've not watched that and you're listening to this, please go and watch that. It is an unbelievable series. As well, like muskets throwing caltrops perfectly on top of it. So to fight another 5 seconds. Some
of my most fun memories just in tournaments in general have come from even just scrimming for that map. That we scrimmed against, I think was it probably Eden at the time? I think they were still Eden team then, weren't they?
Yeah.
Become no beaches, and we were scrimming against them. And there was one point where they didn't know about this whole bridge thing. They went to jump across it. As they jumped, Sesu threw his caltrops on the edge, so it slowed them. So midair, they just went boop, and just fell in the water. 3 people at the same time, and it's just like, oh my god, this is amazing! Holy fuck! Like it was some just amazing moments from that map. And then even there was the last game that we won out of that series, and that just deathmatch like fight on the base point, and I was just like, how the fuck are we winning this? Because it looks so bad when you're watching it, and I was like, we've lost this, we've lost it, we're gone. It's gonna have to the next game, and then somehow the team pulls through and we turn it around and win that fight on that base point. Like, there was just some intense fights on that map, and it was so much fun to be a part of.
Yeah, best series, I think, almost ever in Conquest Blade, for sure. Yeah, so Drayton, make sure to link it somewhere in the podcast, I guess.
I will.
Yeah, PondGuard vs. PLEBs, Season 0, SeaBee Rifles. On YouTube, you will find it for sure. Yeah.
Definitely. What about you, Drayton? What was your sort of good moments from that? From Season 0?
Season 0, oh boy. Blame Elias.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that was the other one that came to mind.
They rolled us so quickly. We had scrimmed a lot. So we Odins were a lot of players were part of Eden, but not part of like the first team in Eden. So we picked up people from elsewhere as well, and we'd practiced a lot against them. We're going, we're trading quite well against Eden, who are a good team. This should be all right. Blame Elias just rolled us. I think they took the full map in about 5 minutes. We were not prepared, and we had to sit down afterwards going, what the hell happened? We didn't do any of the strats we'd planned. We didn't do anything on attack or anything on defense. And players left after that talk. players generally, you know what, I need to put in more effort than I'm willing to put into this. I'm out.
Mhm.
And
And
others
that
will.
was a brand new team then as well, right? You had a lot of new people there. Like when you look at the likes of Eden and Plebs, they'd played in previous tournaments together before, whereas Odin's was like a completely just fresh out of the block team. And you guys have just been like I've said the whole way through, like commentating or casting on CBR as well. Like the Odin's team is the team that's come the furthest since they started. Like they've improved massively week on, week out. You've improved to be a top team now. I mean, look at the most recent season.
Yep.
And it's been really fun to watch that, honestly.
Mhm.
I mean, you were one of the teams that beat Plebs in scrims. Not many teams did, and you took a game off us here and there. And I enjoyed that the most. I tried to get scrims to you guys a lot because most teams couldn't beat us even in scrims, and we didn't learn anything from it. And so having those games against these teams that could get close games against us or even beat us and take some rounds off us helped my team learn and improve so much more because you learn from losses. And that's why I highly rate Argonauts as a team, because they are a team that is not afraid to scrim and fight these top level teams. And we saw it this season in the bracket as well, where they had some really good games in there. I was hoping they would come in the top, but they sort of struggled towards the end. But they're a team that just is not afraid to fight. They want to have these big fights against the top teams because they know that they can learn so much from it.
We'll bring it around to that kind of conversation in a moment, because I think another team like that is Why So Serious, where they scrimmed and they went, you know what, we have broken our nose, we've broken our arm, we can barely see the monitor, yet we're still loading in for scrims. And they were learning, and they ended up taking a game off No Beaches, the only person in the most recent season. But we'll come back to that later.
And also because Why So Serious was formerly known as Love and Devotion, for those who maybe know the whole history. And Love and Devotion was together with Trikey, probably the worst team in the entire history of CB Rivals. So, yep.
They didn't have a good record. They did not have a good record.
Why So Serious has come a long way from where they started.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we got absolutely thrashed by Blame Elias, and we had a sit down talk afterwards. And we then went, right, what are our next games? Okay, our next games against two of the top teams. We're probably not going to win those, but we need to learn as much as we can. Because then we had, I think, Holy Crusaders as one of the American teams. And we basically looked to them, and it was on Kuruk Castle. And we basically started scrimming Kuruk early, because we were just like, this is a team we can beat. We think we can go quite evenly on. And immediately in the games we do after it, we get sallied and we don't learn anything. We don't get to practice. But we went into the Kuruk fight and we nailed the defense. So we're then like, right, we've won our first game in ages, if at all. And we then had to win the attack. And Kuruk back then was it's very different to what it is now, obviously, with the Redux. And we kind of figured out a strategy that we liked, which is where 10 people go one way, 5 people hold and do another push. And simply splitting into 2 threats was enough for us to throw off the defenders. We landed some key trebs and we ended up winning. And we had Mark of G casting us. And oh my god, the hype afterwards. It's one of the best feelings, because in the previous week we'd had Zelgius casting us and going, you know what, he casted it and it was awesome to listen to, but it's not great when you're losing. There's a lot of hype around you losing. So then Mark casted, and we've got clips of him still of him saying it's a great push from Odin's Legion in his Scottish accent. And
I've got to say, I love Mark's casting as well. I've got some clips from Plebs as well.
Yeah, from then on it was like I'm hooked. And I don't think the players we've lost in the meantime from that have just been because they've completely quit the game. They've not gone to any other team. If you look back at the names and those that we won with there, a good 8 to 9 of them are still in the team now, and that's pretty impressive given the fact that we've been playing for another year and a lot of people have stopped. Yeah, that was my highlight. Sorry, I ranted on for a bit there.
Pretty good highlight. Yeah, it's a long one.
I have to jump on the casting though, because I think that's something that is a bit of a hot topic in the community as well. There has been a lot of comments in the past about CBL commentary and how that's sort of gone. And if you compare that now to sort of Rivals and how that's evolved, obviously I'm a bit biased because I have started casting a bit myself as well. But even just going from what you said there, Drayton, so I think Mark's one of the favorites for me just because how much energy he brings to it. And there's still clips that we've got of Plebs where he's just like, oh my god, nobody has ever done that, and just like little clips and bits here. And I have to say that King Alpha did a good job in some of the early stuff as well. It was previous CBLs. Has he ever casted for Rivals? I don't think he has. But in
No.
some of the early CBLs,
Well, I asked him for the final of season 0, I think, to or season 1, and he said he was going to be there, but then he wasn't in the end. So yeah.
Okay.
But I still got clips of him from CBL where it was like when Plebs first did the play of just slamming like 15 grape shots on the endpoint of Warfort, and he was thinking, it's just like a firing line. There's just so many guns everywhere. It's just little clips and stuff like that.
No.
So I think there are definitely some standout casters in there, and I think what I'd like to see is just the sort of depth of casting we've got now on CBR Rivals. There's so much variety there, and there's so many different people that are willing to try it out, which is just good for the game overall. Just getting this fresh people in to do it.
Yeah. Well, and also what I really like is that we have so many different languages that the league is casting as well. I think that's quite unique for a game small as this.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's there in German, Polish, Turkish, English, of course, French,
Spanish.
Sometimes we have Spanish now. We even had an Italian one for a little bit. Russian at first as well. Yeah, so just so many different languages. I even have someone from who wants to cast it in the Arabic language.
Oh, nice.
So that's going to be epic as well.
Yeah, because there is quite a big Arab community in the game, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the thing. So I don't know if people know this, but there's like 25 or 30% from the player base is from Turkey, apparently. You get like all these Discord stats and stuff. So like Turkey is huge in terms of like player count, and then the French community is really intense as well, because there's also Arkanapi, Torkelf, Mr. Nara. Like all these guys are doing such a great job on the French casting team as well. They're really working well together, which is what I enjoy being the tournament organizer.
Definitely, and I think it's definitely one thing that the casting shines here is you have that good team of casters that are building together. Whereas in some of the previous tournaments that we've had, you have like maybe one, maybe two people that are talking. It can feel quite dry. Whereas in the Rivals, I feel like there's a lot of good back and forth between the cast. A lot of time we're getting more of a team building up for it, so to speak, rather than just having one person does all of it.
Oh, and that's definitely another thing that I have been like very vocal about with my casters. I'm trying to tell them you're a casting team, and I'm kind of like the captain, being the tournament organizer, and having to say, all right, you can get all the games, but you can get this and this and this and this, or like the highest division. I want that to always be on the official CB Rifle channels, because that way it's more neutral in terms of like publishment, and also with that every single caster can join that channel and work together on it, because in the end this whole thing of the community is only going to get bigger and better if people work together. And if you are forced to work together on someone else's stream, then eventually that's gonna bug you, especially if a game grows bigger or a tournament grows bigger. You don't want to be playing or casting all the games on twitch.tv/SeaBee. Because eventually if your name is also in it, but you're not getting any recognition, that's not going to help. But if you can do it on an official channel like with CBL same, then it's going to be, oh wow, this streamer is doing this on CB Rifles or on CBL, and let's go check out his channel as well. So that's kind of what I think is really good, or what I hope is going to work well eventually for CB Rifles.
Yeah, it was very noticeable when CBR started. I was good friends with Nine Fingers, who was streaming but didn't really have any recognition. He put his name forward, started casting, and we talked afterwards, and he said his average stream viewers during those times on his channel were 5, 6, 7 times what his normal values were. And he was just like, this is phenomenal for me now trying to get up the echelons in Twitch. It was giving him that opportunity. And I suppose it is quite difficult for you to then, or for some people to then say, right, I did have 200 people watching me, and now I've got to give that up to that official channel. And I can recognize that's probably where some problems came. And I think it kind of goes to show the success of CBR when we did see, what do you reckon your highest viewer count was at one time?
1,000.
If you can think of it. 1,000?
Yeah.
1,000 viewers. Like, how many Twitch streamers
even the
get that
CBL
these
was
days?
struggling to get that sometimes as well. Like the CBL on average was having less than that, I feel, for most of it. I think even the most recent CBL final, I think it was only 700 or 800. I could be wrong with that, but I don't think it was as high as 1,000.
Yeah.
And for sure, like that's during the finals, right? When we had like season 1, season 0, those were like I think the most hyped up as well. I'm gonna get those playoffs back because they just generate so much more hype as well for the stream and for the whole community. Generally though, it's like 100, 150 for the English stream, and then the French stream also have like 50 or 75 something on average. But unique viewer count is always like 300 or 400. So yeah, whatever. But yeah,
I think
it's definitely really good.
From the casting side as well, it gave people opportunities that they didn't have before. We'll use Thorkel as the example. He then went on to cast semi-finals of CBR in not his native language. Like we've got to give recognition to of the platform that CBR gave to these people. It gave them the practice. It gave them the almost the CV to then go to my games. We'll talk about CBL and the comparisons now, but go to my games and say, look, I've done it. Yeah. People have enjoyed it. I got this number of views. Can I please cast? Or you've seen me do it. Can I cast another one?
Absolutely, and that's what I enjoy so much about like players from the community who are like seeing this as the opportunity for themselves and also to help grow like their own interest if they want to, for sure. Like make yourselves bigger and also in that way help the community grow as well. And Torkel has done that for the French, and Alpha Nitrat is now, for example, trying to do that for the German. He's just said, all right, I'm going to do the official German channel for CB Rivals. And that way he's also going to promote just his own name in general, because people will see him cast all the official games from CB Rivals, and then they'll check his channel out as well. And I think that's just like giving to the community, but also receiving back from the community as well. And that's my main focus for CB Rivals in general. Like, giving to the community to help it grow, because my only goal is to keep Conqueror's Blade alive, like so many of us, because it's been struggling a little bit. And in order to do that, you simply have to give and receive.
Yeah, and talking from a personal level, it's part of the reason why I wanted to get into the casting on CB Rivals as well, because I want to end up casting the CBL. I know that part of the reason why I couldn't in the most recent one is firstly because I was competing in the CBL, and also because I didn't have that experience and that background. So being able to do that, it's unfortunate I couldn't do it as much this season just because I was competing in SFW in the end, because I was planning to take more of a back seat. But yeah, that's why I'm looking forward to going in the next season of Rivals, if there is one. Looking forward to going sort of more full-time casting in that, because I want to get that more experience.
There's for sure going to be one.
Good.
Is this the hot announcement, the hot take? Guys, there will be another season.
There will be. Wow.
Will it be my game style where it's in a year's time, or is it going to be fairly soon?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I think a lot of people are enjoying a little break. I don't know how long you intend to make the break. But after CBR, CBL, CBR, that was nearly 6 months in a row of scrims, and I know my other half is very happy I'm not scrimming every other night.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I could tell. So yeah, just to hit on the topic, because I feel it's pretty important, and I'm getting so many DMs and messages about it as well. So, so CB Rivals between seasons has always had 3 or 4 weeks break, at least, right? So even right now we're only on a 3-week break, which is very sensible. You need some time to cool down, switch between seasons, prepare, get new teams signed up, everything else, get the rewards done, which always takes time because my games. But so you need time. And then the other thing that I've noticed over the past year and I've learned is that teams do not have unlimited resources. We all have real lives. We all have family and friends and like holidays. So last season was the first one where I tried to keep in account that there were going to be holidays. So we had Easter, we had Fayit Satir, like with different holidays on different parts of the world. Like I couldn't even take into account like the Orthodox Christian different Easter celebration, because then we would have like 3 different weekends for too small of a population from the player base. So I had to make choices. Right?
Yeah, there was like Mother's Day or something in America as well that delayed everything as well, wasn't there?
Right. Too many American players in the playoffs. It's Mother's Day. There was also the Turkish election. So, all right, we're going to have to move it because it's just going to be like too much trouble if we don't do it. So that's something that I've learned. And it's also like summer holidays are coming up. And I'm willing to hold a poll about who's going to go on a vacation in the next 2 months. But I'm pretty sure there's going to be quite a few guys that will be away for 2, 3, or maybe even 4 weeks. So running a league or any competition in July is just almost impossible. I think only CBL could be held in maybe July, but even then it's going to be quite tricky. And I think it's the same for most of August, although August could be possible. No.
So what we're saying then is that there will be another one, and it
Mhm.
could be soon, but how soon will depend on a few different factors.
Yeah, absolutely.
As
And
if the players want it, from what you're saying.
yeah, it's
Like,
definitely so I would be very capable of starting to organize it like late July, early August. That would be the soonest, I think. But it really, like, I'm not going to hold a poll and say to 500 players, when will you be on a holiday and will you be able to compete? Like, that's not going to happen. We've got to be realistic here. But for sure, like, so if, like, yeah, so we could technically like see with the team captains, do you believe your team could make it, right? That would be the only like closest bet, or yeah, that we could place on. Would we be able to start sooner rather than later? But I don't want to force it, like players and teams, because I've seen that the burnout is real. We've seen teams like Apes go down last season because they were forced too quickly into a competition that was just a little bit too hard for them, and then slowly. And you said the same thing about Odin's at the start, right, Drayton, where players leave because they lose too many games. But it also happens if your team is struggling to find players. I've seen it with Triarchy. I've seen it with, well, just so many different teams that eventually have to keep getting new players on the, like, just a few minutes before the match starts. And that's not fun for any team captain. I think, Temple, you have been in a luxury position in terms of being team captain for a team with players that always want to play, probably. But
Yeah, I think I am
players.
Probably the luckiest captain there is going in that regards, because I think with both plebs and NSFW, I don't think I made any changes during the entire season.
That's just insane.
Maybe one or two in one of the seasons, but yeah, pretty much I think 0 changes the entire season. And you look at some teams, they're changing 2, 3, 4 people every week.
Yeah.
Or 12 people the day of the finals in some cases.
Yeah, true. And then the week after as well. Yeah.
But yeah, so I'd definitely be very lucky in that regard. But that is just, I think part of that is because both times I just had a core, well, especially with plebs, it was the same team the whole way through, right? For like 6 seasons or something like that. It was basically exactly the same team with like 1 or 2 minor changes. So it was a very good core. And with NSFW, it was just a bunch of people, because we weren't super tryharding. It was a chill time, so people didn't really need to. They didn't need to worry about doing loads of scrims. They didn't need to commit loads of time to it. It was just turn up on a Sunday, play a game, that's it. Yeah. And so that's why it's so easy with NSFW to maintain that exactly. Those players during the tournament. So
one more dance, yeah. So just managing everyone's timetable, basically, or schedule in a year, is definitely hard if you want to organize a long-term event. And that's the one thing that's I think the hardest for me as a tournament organizer, just to finish this point, is that 7 weeks for 8 teams is the least that you need to get the league finished. And if you then want to do playoffs, you want to have like semifinals, finals. So that's 2 more weeks. So you need 9 weeks for 8 teams tournament. And that's a lot if you have to do 9 weeks like straight in any part of the year. Just try and envision that and see how many breaks you need to go to a holiday, to go to a party. And there's always going to be some guys who won't be able to make it. So that's definitely been one thing on my list of topics. Like, do I need to shorten the season? Do I need to make groups smaller? Just to allow for more divisions to keep going and teams to keep going.
I think you've got a decent communication train between the captains and yourself, which makes it easier.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I definitely noticed as a player is you were more flexible regarding rearrangements where necessary.
Mm-hmm.
There were definitely times, let's say the Mother's Day example, where it affected very much the NA player base, and I noticed you try and schedule them at the end of the day or end of the schedule just to make it a bit easier for them to turn up. As a kind of hypothetical here, if the NA players came along and said, we've got Mother's Day, we can't make Sunday, how difficult is it for you to then say, right, can you play Saturday instead?
I have done so. So yeah, so on multiple occasions, I've asked teams, could you play on Saturday? Could you play on Friday? Could you play on Monday? And I'll fix someone else to cast it, and we'll get the game going. So that's definitely something that has been possible as long as both teams can make it. But then we come back to the last point.
Both teams have to make it.
Both teams need to make it with 15 players, and then there's also the point of one team potentially also thinking, well, if that team can make it, but I say that I can make it, and they still can't make both times, then they will losing that game, right? Because you need to forfeit the match and can't play.
Yeah.
So
you'd hope that wasn't the case, though.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't want any team to win because of an arbitrary rule, but in a competition, even if there's nothing on the line, it's only a couple sovereigns, but there's always going to be this little voice in the back of your head. Well, this could be a free win, even though it's just about playing the game for fun. But yeah.
It's ego as well. It's the pride of winning, isn't it? So, and there are a lot of ego players in the game,
or the fear of losing.
But just going on what you said about different days, it is a hot topic amongst the community. Is that all these tournaments are on EU time zone? NA always struggles with attending them, but then it's like, what can you really do to accommodate that? Do you look at holding it at like midnight on a Saturday so that you can get both sort of sides going? There's not really an easy way of doing it, because it's something that the NA sort of scene does cry out about a lot, because it's the same with CBL. Even for EU teams, that's held at like 4 p.m. for me most days is when the first match starts. Yeah. And they've listened to feedback a little bit. So I think the most recent one, I think they pushed it back to 5 p.m. it started, I think was the earliest match. But then you still got to be there an hour beforehand to do the bans. You still got to get things set up. So even for EU teams, it's a struggle, let alone for the NA teams that are entering it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I just can't imagine how difficult, or like what players on NA have done to attend CBL. Like the amount of stuff that they need to do to get certain players together.
Take a day of work, basically, I think is the
in some cases.
They just have to call in sick, get the kids to daycare, I don't know what else. So yeah, they've had to do a lot. But I think Sunday for CB Rivals, I've heard from basically all NA team captains, is the best day for them. Even the time that we have at the season 0 and season 1, we've been trying to push the NA teams to the end of the schedule, like what you said, Drayton. But for some teams, that's not even the best, because it depends on if you live in the east or the west in NA. So that's also a thing. And then it's actually easier for most people find out to play like middle of the day compared to like 3 or 4 p.m. Because 3 or 4 p.m. just like messes up your whole schedule. But if you can like wake up late like most gamers do, then get your lunch or breakfast and then have a game and then do whatever else you need to do. Apparently, this makes it a little bit easier. So seems to be the best time in the day. Yeah.
So we've mentioned it a lot, and I think it's worth having a decent discussion about it. Is the last CBL. This is, I think, the first CBL after the creation of SeaBee Rivals. How much do you think they learned from the product that you'd created, SeaBee?
Not enough, but a lot, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Not enough. They tried a lot of new things, a lot of things different, and some of it, I think, worked quite well. I think one of the issues they had was just lack of experience with the game.
It's something they quite regularly have, right?
So to be clear, I wasn't involved in any of the preparations that my games have done for CBL. They may have looked at my event and copied a few things. They may have talked to Corto, because he's also the one that I've been talking to a lot about organizing stuff. And we were already playing with the idea of the band system, the one that we have right now. We also very strongly believe that like 2 bands on both teams and then 2 selects would be the maximum. I think they overdid it with the triple band system, which they copied from Asia. I think it's just too much. So just to be clear, I wasn't involved in any of the organization, and also I wasn't involved in any of the casting or whatever else during the event. I even couldn't watch most of the games because I had to work a lot during those weeks. So I think, Temple, you would probably be the best person to say what they did or did not use from CB Rivals.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's difficult to say, because a lot of the stuff that had changed in it from the previous one is stuff they've been doing on the Asian side for so long, let alone what we've been doing on Rivals. So the ban system has been on the Asian side for a very long time. It makes me think why we didn't have that ban system on our side for so long. But again, we haven't had a CBL for 2 years, or almost 2 years at that point. So I would say there's definitely some work that they need to do on testing the maps. That was one of the biggest feedback, with the map changes, like almost, what was it, up to, I think 2 days before the game started, they changed the maps
48
again.
48 hours, they changed one.
So that was definitely a big thing. And I feel like you will have experience with that as well, having to decide what maps to actually play for the tournament is definitely a difficult thing to decide, especially because, I mean, we've had it even with the Rivals in the past where you picked a map and then all of a sudden we've realized that when we're loading into it, you can't have spectators on it.
Yeah.
So now we can't. Was it Dassault Fort? Wasn't that the one originally that there was issues on?
Yeah, that's what Fort, also the Grand Wall, and some have changed in the meantime. But yeah.
So there's definitely issues like that, which it is such a hard thing to test, because even from my game side, are they going to have 34 people to go and sit in lobby? I mean, they could ask players to help, but are they going to have the time to, do that? And that's where I've always said to them as because I have a feedback session every time. So after this last one, I was actually in a call with them, with all of the CMs, with some of the some of the higher up CMs that you never see part of. You may know them if you're a content creator, but because they're in that Discord too. But having an actual sit down chat with them and saying this is what worked really well. This is what I think went well with this. This is what you really need to work on for the next one. And one of my main inputs from that was you need more player input, or at least captain input on what's going on, because the captains of these teams, like myself in plebs, like No Beaches, like Odin's, they have a lot of experience in these tournaments, in these making custom lobbies, knowing which maps are broken, knowing what maps we can or can't play, knowing, for example, they had Valley Fortress as an option first and then had to change it because the bug spawn, which they should have known about, because it's spoken about all the time on the English Discord, on the official Discord, because people complain about it from sieges and things. They would have known all of this stuff if they just spoken to the players. And so they definitely need much more input from players, or at least captains, or even just a select few people. It can even be some of the mods will know this information. You've got likes of By the Alex, who's a mod, and also plays in a lot of tournaments. He'll have this knowledge as well. So they just need more input there from our side, because it's no fault of their own, but a lot of them don't play the game none of them play the game at a top competitive level. You've got Milord is probably one of the best players that they've got out the CM team, because he actually plays the game regularly. He plays Territory Wars. He does, we've even seen when we do there's been a couple of streams they've done where we're playing with a big group of players on there, like with Jolt with his first stream the other day. Milord's regularly at the top of the leaderboard. Like, he knows how to play the game. He is a good player of the game, but he still doesn't play at that top competitive levels. He's not playing in tournaments. He doesn't have all this experience of that side of it, which is a very different side of the game to what a lot of people will see.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest things, is just getting that input from our side of it, I guess.
And also, I would really appreciate it if they would actually talk to the guys that are doing community tournaments, not just my own, but also the Couch Combat League, the guys from from Poland, who've also been copying CB Rivals, basically made it CB Polska, but did a really, really, really good job with it. So that's amazing. Just talk to those guys. They have experience with organizing tournaments. They know the players. They know the maps. Everything that you said, they will know. They know what they even know what is fun to watch and to cast, and what you need to pay attention to, being the cameraman, which has been a big issue.
Yeah, that's one of the hot topics every time, isn't it?
And also, this is the most annoying thing for me, at least when I watch any competition, but especially in Conquest Blade, is that in the first round or first two rounds, the casters just don't know anything about the history of the competition. And that's also true because I don't think My Games is keeping track of any of the stats, or if they do, they don't even share it, of what has happened. I'm keeping track, thanks to some really smart code from my sister and Superkito, which helping me, of all the stats that are there for CB Rivals. And I don't even have an API. I need to get screenshot, do all this weird stuff with code, and then get it done.
So just jumping in on that there, so just on about sort of information, comparatively from CBL this time to last time. So the previous CBL, they sent us a sheet that they had loads of questions on, of give us your team's background, where they come from, interesting information, all this kind of stuff. I don't think they did that for the most recent one. They may have asked some very basic stuff, but I don't remember.
They tried, because they sometimes gave people weapons, and we'll use the famous one of Ghost X, the famous poleaxe player, right?
Yeah, and they had Amir on short sword or something as well, and I even said to them after that, I sent them a screenshot of the plebs one and just changed and said crossed out their symbol, but this is their actual weapon. They didn't change this is random stuff, but that is a very good point, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to go into the casting and try and get into CBL, because nothing against the CBL commentators they've got, they have a basic understanding of the game, but they don't know how tournaments work, a lot of them, because they don't actually fight or compete in tournaments. I mean, I'm trying to think. The only one really that have any of their guys ever been part of them, apart from probably Nine Fingers, where he's casted CB Rivals.
Nine Fingers is the only one that probably knows the history of basically all tournaments. I appreciate him casting so much.
I think he only started in season 7, so he doesn't have the history earlier than that.
And so I think that's one thing that we need to get him to as well, is get a background of these teams, because a lot of the time when there's dead air or when they're in between games, you kind of see them just looking at the map and drawing on it and stuff, and it's you could just be talking about the teams. talking about the matchups, you're talking about the rivalries of these teams. Like when it was like, for example, the first round, it was us versus Plebs versus Kebabs. Have a long history with those two teams. Nothing spoken about whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's even simple things like the correct pronunciation of players' names.
Oh yeah, even that. Well, Landfair is not going to happen, but yeah, all the other ones may be correct. Yeah.
But even just the players, though, right? Like you'll see people call them like Amaya instead of Amia, and and Amia is like one of the most well-known players in this game.
And one of the more easier names, actually.
Yeah.
So the camera work. This is something I want to mention for bad and then going into good. The first round was difficult to watch, and I remember like my partner.
That's a nice way of putting it.
My partner watched it and she just said, "I can't see what's happening. I've got no idea what's going on." She knows nothing about the game.
Yeah.
And we're there as seasoned players going, "I can't see anything that's going on."
I was even trying to show some friends at work and stuff about it. Like, this is what I'm doing. This is the competition I'm in. They're just like, I can't understand this. I was like, yeah, I can't either, really, to be honest with you.
So feedback was provided, shall we say, to the publishing team, and they did improve it. But from casting experience to the two of you, when you sit the game on your monitor, let's say 24 inches is the average monitor, let's say, you've probably got a bigger one. The game looks fine, but then as soon as you start having it on phones, on tablets, on TV screens, or going through a Twitch window, the quality just drops. And what you might be seeing for you as the caster might look great, but what's actually going to the end product that the viewer's experiencing could be very, very different, or is very different. And I think we saw that when I think one of the famous comments is, "What is this? A stream for ants?" or something like that, because you just couldn't see what was going on, because they were going, right, let's get a wide view. And a wide view is useful, but realistically, Conqueror's Blade is a nitty-gritty fight, and there's a lot of amazing individual plays that are going on.
You want to zoom in on the fight.
That you'd love to see.
Yeah, as a spectator, you need to be able to see that, right? So that is the one thing I would say is great, is they did listen to feedback. I gave them feedback personally as a captain in the captain's area as well. I actually private messaged a couple of them that were organizing it, and they responded to that feedback really well. The problem is, I think it's how it comes across. Typically with Conqueror's Blade, the community is not the nicest of communities. It does have a very toxic sort of reputation. They will get a lot of shitty messages. So they're going to have to try and filter through it. So there needs to be a better form for that. And that's where I always try to provide it through the captain's area, because at least it's my whole team is saying this is what you guys need to look at, and it's in an area where they can read through it, and it's not just everyone going, you're shit, this is awful, like the typical sort of SeaBee feedback that it is.
Being unhelpful.
And so it was really good that they listened to that, but the feedback obviously is they're hiring an external team to do this, which is fair enough. They don't want to have to try and sort it themselves as my games, which is fine, but they need more instructions going into it. Talking from my personal experience, obviously when I'm casting with you, SeaBee, I don't have to worry about the camera because you're dealing with that. But then I myself can have a much wider view, and I can see everything from the top, because I don't need to be that nitty gritty fighting on it. But as a viewer, you want to see that nitty gritty fighting, because that's where the most fun and the most interesting stuff is happening. But then me as a caster, I can look back and be like, okay, cool. Well, there's a flank coming from this side that maybe you can't see, so I start talking about that, and then you can look at that yourself as well, and then we can jump over here and look at this, and so you do have that option when you have multiple casters of having that vision without having to be zoomed out yourself. Because even when I was doing the community tournament, and I think it was Katie, was doing the main camera work, and even the feedback then, a lot of people were like, well, what are we looking at? We can't see anything. And then I'm talking about stuff on the other side of the map because it's on Algolia, so it's a huge map, so you never got to see all that anyway in one camera. So there is definitely work that he's doing, but like we said, it was great they listened to that feedback and it got better throughout the tournament. And of course, which I think you set it up in the most recent season of Rivals, where you could have two sets of view on there as well, so we can have like a wider view as the main picture or as a side one, and then when it's at the inter fights happening, you can have that zoomed in one, but still have the zoomed out one on the screen as well. And that makes it so much better, and that's what they did with CBL this season as well. So it makes it so much more enjoyable to look at.
And much more interesting. We've also been having this conversation with the casters on CBR Rivals, that it would be like the dream scenario would be to have at least two camera perspectives on stream at any time, or at least be able to switch between them. Preferably one where you have like the big zoomed out and the other one focused on the fight, or you have one following the attackers, one following the defenders or the flanks. Well, if you have more camera angles, even better, of course.
But I feel like with that, it would be nice to have it on the back. I feel like you would need a separate sort of camera team to do it rather than the casters, because then they're trying to focus on moving the camera whilst trying to cast, but then you're limited by how many spectators you can have in the fight. So there's a lot of moving parts.
It's enough. Yeah. So I've explored a few ways. So there's definitely a way. There's a third-party software that you could use where you could say, all right, we have 2 guys or 3 guys doing the camera work, and they will get that into OBS, and they will like create the camera for all the casters, and the casters will just be like almost like a radio show. You'll switch between them. You'll say, all right, Torkel, what's going on with the attack? You'll say, Templeshot, what's going on with the defense? And that way you could kind of direct what's going on, but that requires more teamwork as the casters as well.
I think there's also the taking experiences from other games where you have different types of caster, where you've got color versus play-by-play. Having the depth of knowledge that the color casters need is a very different skill to the play-by-play. I think some of the legendary play-by-plays that we've had is Zelgius. He was phenomenal at just rattling out as much information as what was happening. He did like to favor NA, we will say that, but he was really good at it. And then this is where we kind of think that Mark is a really good color caster, where he's actually got a bit more depth of knowledge of what's going on, and he can provide that context, as well as he reads the game slightly differently to a play-by-play, where he'll notice where the flanking force is coming from.
Yeah, same for Nine Fingers. Same, and I think this is true for most casters right now, is that they're all kind of like color casters. We don't have many play-by-play casters, and also makes sense because most of the guys who are getting into like streaming in general and casting are guys who like to like sit back, play the game, and chat. And I think there's just not that many like aggressive guys or guys who will be very vocal about or know every single like skill or from a weapon or unit, because that's what you need to know when you're play-by-playing. You need to say, oh, Imperial Pike Advance, and this is the most basic stuff, but you need to see all those things and be able to call it out, and that's really hard to do.
I mean, even just going in more detail than that. So you look at something like League of Legends, for example, and you see the cast of that, and they will know exactly the name of every single skill. Exactly. Could you tell me what the name of a Armiger 2 ability is? You know, like, could you tell me what the name of this ability is? You know, I don't think there's really anyone in the game at this moment that could give you that information to every single unit.
People will know that, but it is not their job. They are not paid to do that.
That's
that's the thing. And that's the thing. And honestly, I think one of the biggest things that my games could do for the next CBL is properly reach out to the community who are generating quality things, such as casting experiences, such as tournaments, such as trailers. I'm going to mention Crystal Valkyrie again.
Yes,
the trailers that they make are insane, and they use things that are in the game. Please, can my games just reach out and employ them? Just say, right, can we have 100 hours of your work? Thank you. And give them a fair rate. The quality of product will be something that we don't know yet. We do not know what they're capable of if they're given resources. So I think I'd love that to happen.
Same.
And I think if you can then support them with people that have the resources to do a proper production, like the company that was employed, work together. Like people have established themselves as good, honest, notable members of the community, as well as people are establishing themselves as toxic members of the community. You get both sides. Work with the good ones, make the game better, and make the products better. Because I think CBL was a success overall, but there were issues, particularly when we think of what happened in the final, where communication just disintegrated. And if players had been involved, I think the understanding of, no, that is an in-game mechanic, that is a bug that's been abused, the maps wouldn't have been chosen poorly, all these things that we've mentioned as errors, they would have been ironed out, and the end result could have been even better than it was.
Yeah. And so that was the sort of the 3 biggest issues for me, really, as a captain of the plebs team, was the maps being changed all the time because they just hadn't tested them properly. The camera work on the actual tournament, obviously it did get better, which was great throughout the end, and towards the end it was almost perfect. Like, you couldn't really sort of say a bad word about it towards the finals, but then it was that hour delay in the finals with just no communication. I don't know if we really want to go into details of it because I don't think it's really needed, but from a plebs point of view, we were just left sat there for an hour with no communication, just told, we'll talk to you soon, and then an hour later, still nothing. And that was our experience of that. So yeah.
That having contingencies in your protocols for an incident like that happening is probably worth having in the next tournament.
Well, again, to their credit, they did deal with it, and I think probably one of the most fair ways they could. Obviously, I didn't want to have to redo the game, but that's their decision. I respect that as a captain. All my players may not necessarily agree with it, but the outcome was still the same. I think if we'd lost it, maybe I would have had a different reaction if we'd lost the thing overall, because technically we won 4-0 at that point if we hadn't have redone it. But I think they did the best they could in the situation. But again, if they've never experienced that before, they weren't ready for that. They weren't ready to have to deal with that. So I kind of feel a bit bad for them in that regards, because it's something they had never dealt with before. But again, they could have probably been prepared for that.
Yeah, but even if you're not prepared for it, I feel like you need to keep communicating with anything. If you don't know, you need to just say, we don't know right now, but we're going to check in with you every 5 minutes to keep you updated and say we still don't know it, but at least you'll know we're working on it.
I think for me as the captain, I just would have appreciated just them dragging me into call and just saying, this is what's happening. Let's hear your side of it, whatever, or just what's your input, or we'll get back to you. But it was literally just nothing. I was there going, hello, any update? We're going to go soon. Like, yeah, we'll be a few minutes. Okay, 10 minutes later, any updates? What are we doing? Like 20 minutes later, hello, anyone? Like what's happening here? And eventually they brought me into call and told me what happened. But that was, like I say, an hour later.
Yeah. That would have been fine if they said at the start it's going to be an hour, and then it would have been nice if it would have been earlier. But
yeah. And there's people from such a range of backgrounds that play this game and enjoy it. I'm sure there are people that are rules lawyers in their D&D games or board games that they play, and they know every little detail that's possibly there. So they're the kind of people that you want on your game manager team.
Yeah, exactly.
That are managing it. So
exactly.
I honestly think the community has so much to give back to this, and they do love it. They are very passionate. We've said it's a very unique game so many times at this point.
Yeah.
And making the most of people that care, like, give them scratch their back if they scratch yours. I think it's
I think overall it was a good thing, right? And I think just the main thing we've got from this is that they just need player input. And even like you just mentioned something interesting there, just have a member of the community that is part of their team during the CBL. It doesn't have to be paid for, whatever. Just have a player that is involved in every stage. You can go, okay, this is what we think. What do you think from a player side? What's your perspective? Just that one person they can go to. They don't have to go to like a whole team of captains or anything and get loads of information. Just one person they can pick from the community. It can be a content creator, whatever. It can be someone notable from the history. It could be SeaBee, or it could be like someone like myself if I'm not competing. Someone that has that notable history in tournaments. And just say, look, you're going to be a part of our internal team during this. They don't have power to do anything, but we want to get your opinion on stuff if anything happens. So they can just go to you quickly and say, cool, this happened. What's your thoughts as a player? X, you've organized other tournaments, you've competed in tournaments, whatever. What's your opinion on this? Okay, cool, great, thanks. And they'll go back and do it. But at least they have that input then. And it's just that communication, like you said. So
I want to go back to this point later, but Drayton, I just want to emphasize how important it is what you just said, that there are so many talented people in this community, and I've just been amazed so many times during the CB Rifles, like whole organization of all seasons, by the amount of skills that people have, like coding, the trailers, like organizing stuff, and it's all coming from like a lot of passion, and even all the toxicity is only there because they enjoy the game so much that they really care, and they are apparently willing to spend so much time flaming down everything else. Because they actually want to keep it going. So
you mentioned the ability to rip information off pictures. In one of the old houses on EU2, we had a guy that coded that. So we were able to hand out rewards at the end of a week, like titles and things like that, based on how much people had handed in quests, and he took a picture of it and loaded it onto his computer, and the code did the rest. He quit the game and went and worked for Google. So
makes sense. That pays better.
I mean, you've got the likes of GamerKin as well on this content creator Discord. He's studying coding and everything at the moment, and every now and then he's like, just put this in your game, guys, and just put a screenshot of some code on there. It's just little things like that.
Epic.
But there's definitely that's definitely the talent there.
So player and captain input, I've been using that differently throughout the CB Rifles career. Let's say it that way. So I think that whenever you collect information from anyone in order to make something better, you need to assess how valuable is the information as well, right? And then you need to assess what is the long-term idea as well. So I think even if my games with CBL, or same for me with CB Rifles, if you collect information from players or from team captains or from casters or even viewers or anyone else, you always need to have someone who has the overview and this like kind of neutral station to be able to make to freely make decisions and say, I believe that in the long term this is going to be the best solution. And then if it isn't, then it's fine. You can say, all right, this wasn't the best solution apparently, but at least with all the information we had, and we had good information, we tried to make the best decision. And I think that's something that's really hard, which is what I'm finding out right now. Like, there's so many people that are not going to agree with you, especially if any event gets bigger and bigger. I imagine, Temple, you even have that within your own team, that some players say, well, I don't think the strategy is going to be good, but we'll go with it anyway.
Definitely. And I think, just touching on that, we mentioned it in the episode with Evo, I believe, as well, or it might have been after we finished recording. We were chatting to him about it. It's like, one of the best times for this game in regard to balancing was when they were open about the discussions with it. It said, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. So even if you don't agree to it, you can understand why they've done it. And I think that's where you've been very good in Rivals, as well as you're very open with it, with people like, this is what we're doing, this is why. And so even if they don't agree to it, they can understand why you've made that decision. And that's a big thing. And I think my games in general need to be more open with their feedback about things, and just in general with their communication. It's a running theme that we've got, which is where, yes, on one hand, it's difficult for them to be open with it because of the amount of shit that they're getting through. But when they are more open about things, when they are more open to discussing things, that's when they get the better interaction with the community. And so that would be appreciated just in general across the board. It's just that better communication, better openness from them as a sort of company overall with the community.
And but also at the same time, and this is another point, that of course, like, my games can do things better, but also I think we as a community can also get better at giving whoever's organizing something a little bit more trust and room to say, all right, we're gonna trust you to make this decision, but we're gonna give you input for sure, and we're gonna check in with you later to see if whatever decision you made has been good for all of us, and if it hasn't, and if it wasn't, let's reevaluate and we'll give you input again, and that way you can keep the cycle going, instead of like flaming someone down, making sure that they quit the game and stop organizing anything. And then,
I mean, talking from personal experience of Rivals, I mean, there are times where I haven't agreed with things that you've done. We'll talk about the whole Liao incident that happened for weeks and weeks, where I was chasing you, trying to get you to ban them from the game because they were just disruptive and just bad for the game, and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's your tournament. I'm going to respect your decision, and if I don't like it, then either I deal with it or I leave. There's no point in me sitting there just shitting down your throat and shouting at you the whole time, just being like, why have you done this? Why have you fixed this? And that's what I feel like a lot of what my games get is feedback like that. It's like, fix it, more broken, you need to do that. Whereas at the end of the day, you've got to give them a bit of leeway as well. It's a two-way thing. So, and I appreciate, you've done a lot of work for the SeaBee Rivals tournament. And that's why I didn't really kick off very much. I'm sure there were the times you remember me sort of where I did, but it wasn't like, I feel like I wasn't the worst out there, if that makes sense. I was trying to be constructive, trying to have that conversation, but at the end of the day, it's your decision, and I'll respect that.
Yeah, highlighting problems rather than providing solutions is...
And I feel like my games have gotten better with their communication recently. They've had a few new CMs join. We've got the likes of Malvec that took over. We've got the likes of Jolt now coming in. Katie has obviously been a lot more open more recently, whereas historically, I feel like they didn't have the best communication. Whereas these ones that come in recently now have been definitely, with me specifically, have been a lot more communicative. Like, even just the simple thing, like there used to be some historical CMs that you could message them, they get back to you like a week later. Whereas now I know I can message one of these CMs and they'll respond either that day or the next day. They get a much faster rate. And you got to think there's probably hundreds of people messaging them, and yet they're still getting back really quickly. They're a lot better at their communication now. But I think just as an overall, like some of their wider messages, they could be more open with wider communication.
And just generally, I got to say that I feel like over the past few seasons, just generally the game's evolvement has been just getting better in general. I think.
I mean, we mentioned in previous episodes, the game I think is in the most balanced state it's ever been, apart from the Yan Cav that I hate with a passion. But
if you remove the outliers, yes.
But just overall, I think it's in one of the healthiest states I've been. I mean, I was saying earlier in this recording, like, I've seen a lot more new players coming into the game now. It seems like they've done a big recruitment drive, and it's one of the things that we are planning to do a CM episode towards the end of the season to sort of close it off. And one of the things I want to talk to them about is their advertising sort of drive and what they're doing. Because obviously people sit here and say, oh, well, I haven't seen any adverts for months. Well, that's because I play the game. Why should I be seeing adverts for the game I play? And then that's one of the conversations I had with one of their team a couple of months ago. And I was like, actually, that's a fair point. Why would I want to see advertising for the game? They do targeted advertising. I want to go in more details on that with them, because a lot of the communities go, well, I haven't seen it, so they're not advertising it. It's that shit. You need to advertise more. And I'll be honest, that was my opinion a couple of months ago. I was like, well, I haven't seen nothing, so why are you not advertising the game?
Oh, you're playing.
But then recently, I've seen a lot more new people coming. I've seen a lot more new people streaming it. People like 1 or 2 viewers where they've just started playing the game and they're streaming it. The last couple of weeks, I've seen a lot more people coming into the game, and the Steam charts show that as well. I think someone was saying to me earlier today that the Steam charts for the last sort of couple of weeks are like 1,500 to 2,000 players a day on there, which is like 500 people more than it has been the last couple of months. So, which is a massive increase. It's a
Absolutely. Well, and
33% increase on top. So,
isn't it even the first increase in quite a few months?
There was a little blip like a couple of months ago where they went up for a couple of weeks. I'm not sure what caused that, but yeah, it's been a big increase recently compared to what it was before, from what I know. So I think the game is again heading in that direction, but there's still some work that needs to be done. Yeah. And that's been the theme across this whole series of this podcast: is the game is heading in a good direction. It's starting to get where it needs to be, but there's still a lot of things they need to tweak or change or look at to make it the game which we all want it to be, which we all know it can be.
So this is kind of off topic that we just went, but back to another topic regarding the tournament scene. I think one thing that's not allowed right now for any tournament, if you look at the rules that they set out, is that you cannot get any sponsorship deals. And I tried to get some during season 0 even, because you can get some small sponsorship deals even for really small tournaments and esports, and that could help you like host a server or get some help from third parties to generate like really cool background stuff, or even create like what you see on League of Legends. You can
or even really pay people for the intros that they did.
Yeah, exactly. Like
are you talking about SeaBee Rivals brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends? Or something?
Brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends.
Yeah, exactly.
Other games are available.
just generating content for that would be so fun as well. There's so many fun things you could do with it. But yeah, like and that's something that I would really appreciate if community tournaments could be sponsored by third parties as well, because that would just help to grow it even bigger. Because at the end of the day, like we've said a few times, we're just scratching our own backs, even putting in some money of our own if we have to, like paying servers, paying for some small content that you need, like voice actors, for example.
Paying the extra members of your team so they get the same rewards as everyone else.
Get the right amount of sufferance. Yeah. So it would be really nice if there is a way to get some funding going for events like this, because it can become really big. Like right now, SeaBee Rivals, again, 1,300 people on the Discord, 400 to 500 players playing every season, not counting all the changes within the teams. So like the amount of players that are playing are really big. If you were doing this on a physical level, so you would be doing this outside in the city, this would be a really big event, like really, really big.
Yeah, and I think my games need to appreciate that it's all done for free. You know, no one's getting any money for this.
Yeah,
you can argue the players are getting any money, but it's like the organizers of the tournament, the players themselves, team captains, the casters, all these people, they're not making any money for this. You can argue like small side things like, oh, we're making a bit of money from Twitch subs or viewers and that, but it's not like we're getting a wage. There's people doing this in their own time. They're doing it right at their own backs. Like, that's just how passionate we are about this game, and we want to see it succeed. And that's been, again, the theme of this whole podcast series, is that we all love this game. We are here playing it for a reason. We just want it to be the game that it could be and that it should be and that we know it is.
Yeah.
So you've got the benefit of people giving up their time now without the promise of money, without the promise of remuneration in any kind. So they're the kind of people that are in it because they love it. So they're the kind of people that could be rewarded. And it would not be like they're just doing it for the money, or they're just doing it for the subs or Twitch views. They're doing it because they want to, and they're the people you want to work with. Hopefully. The SeaBee Rivals is obviously why we wanted you to talk about come on and talk about community things. There's been a couple of other tournaments. We saw the Community Clash put on. We saw Corto before you, as well as other ones. Sesu did his deathmatch tournament. Were you able to watch any of that, SeaBee?
No, unfortunately not. No,
okay.
I've been following his Discord. So I know what he's been doing, so it's been really good stuff. And also, there's also this new NA tournament, NACB tournament server. I've been on there as well. Have you been playing in that, Temple? I don't think so. I think No Beach has been playing a lot in it.
Not in this one, no. I have been in a few of the previous NA tournaments. There was one that Zelgis did probably like 6 or 7 months ago now that we had a couple. That was a small. I think it was 8v8. I think we had a couple of teams in that.
Yeah, the Couch Combat League, I think it was. Yeah,
there was a Couch Combat League as well. But there was another one that Zalgis did a couple of
really?
months ago because Couch Combat League was on the different server, I believe it was, than Zalgis. So. But the Couch Combat League was a really fun one. It's just a small tournament with some just random NA teams in. And of course, we turned up as EU1 and dominated every week. But it was just fun. There was so many memorable moments from it. Like, there's just some just funny clips where, because that was where you could only play purple units or lower. And there was no siege and any of that kind of stuff. So there was moments where we just played like 8 javelins on Green Peak, whatever it was. And we just opened the gate and just a volley of javelins wiped out 4 of their heroes in the first throw. And just some memorable moments like that, just playing random stuff and just having fun. It was just a relaxed tournament to have fun. It wasn't super sweaty and try hard until other E1 teams turned up. Then it did become a bit sweaty and try hard for a couple of weeks. Then they gave up because of the time difference. Because it was like 2 a.m. I think it was that we were playing or something like that. And it was like a 4-hour tournament, so it was a big deal. But that's what I did like about the Community Clash tournament as well. The fact that it was just a fun tournament. People took it a bit too serious, I think, so it kind of ruined it towards the end. But I like the idea of like these sort of more relaxed for fun tournaments. You just turn up, have a bit of fun. Play with a bit of competitive, but it's not super sweaty and try hard. Like what you're doing with with the Rustic division, where you want people to just turn up, have a bit of fun. If they want to progress, they can. But if they want to just chill out and just enjoy the moment, then it's there. Yeah. So I think they definitely do more tournaments like that.
So how do you feel the Sessu one went? We've obviously got a season 2 coming. This is you, Temple.
Season 2's already been, so it's going to be season 3 next year. They've had 2 iterations already.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, so season 2 was a little bit season 2 was an interesting one. Season 2 was a little bit I'm trying to think of the word for it, but just because of the finals. So the finals ended in a draw, and then one of the teams didn't want to rematch. So
drama, yeah.
It was a bit of drama there. So the rules would need to be changed next. But again, this is what happens with tournaments when you're first starting out. There's going to be things that happen that you don't account for, and you've got to learn from it and progress. But for me, it's been really fun. Season 1 was won by a team that no one expected to win. It was just this. It was a team. I think it was mainly EU2 players. A lot of them that weren't well known in the community. There was like one of them. I think was like old friends of someone that's now in EU1. So there was a bit of known there. But it was like a team that wasn't expected to win suddenly came out and won the whole thing, and they were really strong the whole way through. And then season 2 was a bit. I think there was more try-hard EU1 teams that entered. So it was an EU1 team that ended up winning it. But it was still interesting. There were some teams that started off really bad in the first round, but just about made it through, and then dominated in the second round, and then it was sort of even match. It was very back and forth. It wasn't just from the start you knew which team was going to win. There were some very good matches in there, and I do like that. There was obviously some teams that are full of just all top players that you're going to know and be like, okay, well they're probably going to win because it was all kebabs, plebs, or no beaches players, and there's they're going to be a good team. But there were some teams that came out of nowhere and just snuck through and played really well and just surprised people. And I think that's what I liked about it. I think it's different in that one because it's just a first come, first serve. So you will get a random amount of teams in there. Maybe the longer it goes on, maybe it needs to change and we'll do maybe split up a couple of days or something. But casting that was really fun. Honestly, it was just different. I haven't done a deathmatch tournament for a while, so it was just fun casting that and seeing the difference of play styles from different teams.
Yeah. What I also really like about getting more deathmatch tournaments is that in deathmatches you need to be able to call out skills, right? Because you can't just say, "Oh, this player killing him in 4 or 50 minutes." So
he's stunned him. Oh, he's on the floor now. Oh yeah. And so I am having to try and pick up like, oh well, he's used rough justice. Now that's going to be here. Okay, he's using his thunderstruck. He's used this over here. You do have to start picking up some more of the knowledge from that, which is what I'm trying to do for that. But yeah,
so it's really good practice for like play-by-play casting, which is what we need more of, I think. So it's been really it's really good to have more diversity in the tournaments as well. Yeah.
Definitely.
I think another random question that kind of came to mind is you mentioned the pick bans and how you think 2 bans and 2 secures or 2 locks is a good way of doing it. Sorry, correction. 2 bans for each team and 1 selection for each team. Yeah. What do you think the options are to have the 3, but teams can choose to select or lock for each one? So instead of banning things, so a team could realistically lock 3 units or ban 3 units.
There's definitely ways, but I think that right now I feel like it would just make it too complicated, and because there's just like it's already really hard to create team rosters with 15 players and 3 or 4 different units that you need to pick. And the amount of variety, I know that No Beach's team captain Matchin had 400 Excel sheets for the CBL Asia. So just to imagine the amount of work that some team captains are willing to do, I think it would be very unethical to force players into doing that, especially because it's not paid.
I think it's the fairness of it as well, right? So at the moment you have it where the first team, that whether it's a roll of the dice, whether it's just the luck of the draw, whatever, they get that first choice, they get to ban first. But then that means that the second team gets to pick first. They get that sort of balance of fairness because it is very one-sided. And if you give them the option to ban or pick, that gives the first team a huge advantage. Then how do you decide which team goes first?
You definitely need like the alternation of banning and selecting. I think League of Legends is the main esport that I follow, and I think they've done it really well. And that's also what we went off to, Corto and I, with this ban system that we're using right now, Sea Rivals. You need to make sure that, like you said, Temple, both teams need to have an advantage somewhere, and they need to have a disadvantage also at some point. So you need to be able to counter pick and also to select at some point. I just think that 3 bans right now is too much. Makes it more complicated, way too many options. That teams need to find team play and rosters. Because with 3 bans, you could triple ban all the anti-cav or all the cav or all the ranged, and you can already see it in the past season. We've had games where all the exotic units were banned, so Shenji, Falconetti, Flamers, Zekalian. And for sure it makes for fun matches at times, but it's also not fun if only those units are banned every single game. Because with 3 bans for one team, you could ban almost all exotic units if you just don't want to play those. So yeah, I just think that it makes it more diverse in terms of what we will see if you stick to 2 bans, even though more bans means more options. It also narrows the possibilities that probably we will be seeing.
Yeah, I mean, you even saw it with the finals in Rustic, right? So the team that ended up winning, and I feel really bad, I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
Nice try.
Nice try, that's the one.
Both, yeah, it's actually a name.
Yeah, that was a good pun.
And both son of a bitch, you got me. both of their matches, but both for the was it the final and the semi-final, they banned basically all anti-cav and just run a very heavy cav comp in their match. So that's even with just 2 bans, they could still pull it off.
Yeah, they can already do that. Yeah, so I don't see the additional value of another ban. I think that's probably the best way to put it. Maybe at some point it could have additional value, but right now I think it's just not there.
Yeah, and I think it's at a good point because of the number of specials we have. I think maybe if they brought in more specialist units, then you could potentially have more bans. But it's like at the moment, I know that, well, when we were playing in plebs, it was the case of we knew that they could ban either one of the specialists. We'd always have one open. We always had one player that was good with that unit. So they couldn't ever they couldn't ever fully ban us out. So I think it was in a healthy position with that. Where the game is in its current state, maybe in a couple of seasons' time, when we have more special units, that could change. But I think where the game is right now, it's definitely in a healthy spot.
So I think one argument that could be made to actually have more bans is that it would open up more different ways to approach a map. If you are able to ban 3 units, that would normally make it impossible to attack a specific point or defend a specific point. With 3 bans, you could probably get such a unique composition that you could actually hold a really weird spot on the map. But again, is that really what you want? Do you want teams to win based on what they selected before the match?
If you take League as your example, people say the game is won in pick ban.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And then it's execution and skill gap for a little bit. Yeah. So how far do you want to go with it? And I think that's kind of the question. And it's really hard to estimate what will happen.
I think given the fact that every week is a new map, you've already got a meta shifting event happening in. And I know when we'll take the No Beaches versus Why So Serious one in, it turned out not banning Yanya Dao was a coin flip. And you were entirely reliant on who got the better charge off. And if one team did, they won. And we saw a team massively upset. But however, if you've been scrimming, if we'd seen what had been going on the back, you knew that Why So Serious were going to upset someone, and you prayed they weren't you. So we were lucky as Odins to play them quite early. And we saw that they 2-0'd us in scrims sometimes. And we're meant to be good. And they are. They're beating us quite comfortably. But we can go on to that. I think it's interesting. I think I look forward to seeing what you come up with for the next time. And that's the thing that's quite nice is it does keep changing. It learns from its history, which is always a really good thing. And getting that feedback from captains and getting the feedback from players when the feedback is done appropriately is the way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think
Definitely.
we can probably summarize. If we were to have a major takeaway for people listening to this who are parts of the community that want to get involved, and tournaments we think are probably the best way or easiest way for that to be done because there are ones that exist. SeaBee, how can people help out?
Start playing and approach it casually. I think that's the main thing. Just get involved, start playing, have fun. And if you enjoy it, play more. If you don't enjoy it, give us feedback and trust that anyone who's organizing stuff will make it better because we want to make it better.
Mm. And specifically, how can people get involved in SeaBee Rivals? Where's the best place for them to start to get involved, whether it's staff-wise or as a player or participant?
With the break right now, go to the YouTube, rewatch all the games. You can start Season 0, Finals, PLEBs versus PondGuard.
Which will be in the link in the description below.
Yeah,
definitely.
exactly. It's just SeaBee Rivals, so that should be really easy to find. From YouTube, you can go to the Discord link. Go looking for a team if you don't want to start a whole new team, and you'll find a team. I'm pretty sure there's so many teams looking for players at any point of time. And if you have a house already, or if you're in a house and you know that they're not playing in a tournament, tell them to sign up. Just get 15 guys together, 20 should be better, and then you should be good to go, and you can sign up for the next tournament. That's it. And if you want to make us not have to scratch our own backs, you can even go to the Patreon page and get some money over to the content creators that are working really hard.
Are there any current vacancies in the team that you're looking to hire for?
Oh yeah, always. I would definitely really like to have more cameramen or women. So at one, I would like, the dream is to try out the camera system that we've been talking a little bit about. I would really hope to do that for next season if possible. Casters always welcome. Moderators always welcome. If you just want to sit in a lobby or like open up the lobbies, you're welcome. If you want to get some, if you know coding, you can help me out. I still haven't been able to get up the website because of time issues. So if you're able to make websites, sign me, or like just hit me up. Yeah, there's just so many things that you could do. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll put SeaBee's details in the description below. Other than that, thank you so much for your time. That was a really fun chat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Our next episode is going to be with casters specifically as well, so we'll go even more into what features could be added there. SeaBee put a comment in the chat about what questions you want us to ask.
We definitely will do.
And we'll see you hopefully next week, maybe in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Bye everyone.
Have fun with
Yeah,
it.
thanks. Thank you.